Good afternoon, everybody. It is Saturday, February 23rd, and as you can see, my kitchen at this point doesn't even exist. It is completely dedicated to all things gardening. Fig cuttings, tomato seedlings, more tomato seedlings. Over here I have more fig cuttings trying to root. I have peppers and basil. It's just a mess right now. But I wanted to do this update mostly on all things fig. And the first thing I wanted to do was start off with some good news. Just to give you an example as to how long it can take for fig cuttings to root, this is a Black Madeira KK that I received on the 2nd of November of last year. I have been trying to root this Black Madeira for 113 days now. 113 days. I started off with over a month wrapped in paper towels in a plastic bag trying to coax out roots. That failed, and I've had, I think, 3 different pottings of this. And this was the most recent potting that was done on the 5th of January, and I think I am finally successful here. If you can see that, that is a root. That is a root right there. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I may actually get roots on this Black Madeira if it does not rot first. So that is absolutely fantastic news. So that's the good news. I want to move on with the bad news. I have been trying to get these cuttings to root. This Smith, I've been trying to get this one to root for 113 days. And this Col de Dame Blanc, this one looks like it's going to be a total failure. It's completely rotted. And this Col de Dame Blanc is one of my biggest failures that I'm truly upset about. And it was mostly my fault. This Col de Dame Blanc used to be this big. That is a huge cutting, and I thought this cutting was going to be a piece of cake to root because it was the most beautiful cutting I've ever received. It was huge, it was full of buds. I thought this was going to be a shoo-in, but I haven't been able to get it to root, and as you can see here, the whole bottom has rotted. All of this bark is coming off. It's no good, and I've repotted this twice to no avail. So I'm really upset about this because I committed a rookie sin with this. When you get a cutting that is this big and that is this beautiful, this was the only one I received, you cut that cutting in half because that will give you twice the amount of chances to get a successful cutting. That is the only Col de Dame Blanc cutting that I purchased, and I'm upset that if I don't get this to succeed, I'm not going to have a Col de Dame Blanc. And it looks like, more or less, it's not going to work out for me. But I'm going to try anyway. This is my last ditch hope. So, same thing with this Smith. I do have one successful Smith, so I'm not so upset about that. But as you can see, this Smith cutting, it did try to send out growth using the internal energy source inside of the cutting. But the bottom has since rotted, and I've repotted this 2 or 3 times as well. So I had to cut this off above the rot. So I'm pulling out all the stops. They don't seem to want to root in bags, and they don't seem to want to root in cups. So I went out and I bought 300 plastic bags. These are the 4-inch by 16-inch U-line bags on eBay that Ben B recommends. And I had a coupon, so I got all these for $7.90 shipped. I also went out and I purchased Clonex, because at this point I have nothing to lose, and if I'm going to get a successful cutting here with this little nub left over, I have to pull out all the stops. So what I'm going to do is I have some mix that I have outside cooling off that I was baking that I'm going to use to fill up these bags for my first ever attempt at fig pop. So I'm going to wait for that to cool off, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pot these up in the bags, and I'll show you what that process looks like. Alright, the first thing I want to do is I want to go over the mix that I'm going to use for this fig pop method. Now, when you've seen me pot up figs in cups, I care very little about the mix that goes into those cups. I just want it to be fairly well draining. With the Fig Pop method, it's a little bit different. Because you're going to seal up the mix in a bag, it's going to hold in that moisture. So you need to be a little bit more selective about the mix, in my opinion. You want something that can retain the moisture very well, that you can just make very lightly damp and is going to hold on to that moisture evenly. And because of that, I think it's important to either use a cocoa core or a peat mix that's very, very lightly damp. So what you see here is this is predominantly just a Jiffy seedling mix that you get for a 12-quart bag for $4.50 from Walmart or Home Depot. And then with that, I added in just a little bit of sifted mulch, the small particles of the mulch. I don't want any big chunks in this. So this is what your mix should look like. It should be very lightly moistened. When you squeeze it, it should hold its shape, but really very little water should not come out when you squeeze it until you squeeze it very hard. And I'm squeezing this as hard as I possibly can, and there were only a few drips there. So that is exactly what you're looking for right here. So what I did was I moistened this mix first. I baked it in the oven for 45 minutes at 325 degrees in this disposable tray. And I did that to kill any fungus gnat eggs or any other fungi that may be living in here, because I added hardwood mulch to it. I made sure to moisten it first because you can't bake unmoistened peat mix. It's too dry. You'll roast it. Then after that, obviously some of the water evaporated in the oven, so it dried it out. I had to add a little bit more water after the fact. So I mixed it all together and I got the mix that you're looking at right now. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to put that into bags. Okay, it is important to note that I am not the originator of this method. I'm just following the directions as I understand them. Ben B has some nice write-ups and some videos about the Fig Pop method if you want more detail. So the first thing I'm going to do here, because my figs are such pathetic small cuttings now, I'm only going to be able to bury the first nodes, which are here and here, here and here. So roots generally shoot out naturally around the nodes, so this gives me only one shot to get this right. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to score the bottom, and I want to expose the cambium layer of the fig cutting. And the reason why I want to expose that layer is because roots can also come out of that layer. So what you see on the outside is the bark. The cambium layer is the small green layer right underneath the bark. If you cut in too deep, then you are cutting into the softwood layer that will be brown. So what you want to do is you just want to score a little bit of this so you see green. So this cut here, and I previously made a little cut here, will hopefully give me chances for roots to come out both here and not just at the nodes here. It's important that I don't bury this node because I need something for a bud to come out of, and this is the last opportunity for a bud to come out, so I'm going to have to bury this cutting right to about here. I'm going to do the same thing with this smith. I'm going to make a little cut here, and I'm going to make a little cut right, probably right about here, just into that green, but no deeper. And that's what I'm going to attempt to bury. Now, I'm very proud to say that I actually read the instructions for this Clonex, and it says that all you have to do is dip the cutting in Clonex rooting gel to desired depth and then insert it into a rooting medium. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up these bags first about halfway. So since the bags are so narrow, this is actually going to be fairly challenging to do. And as I said before, these are the bags that Ben B recommended in one of his videos or write-ups, I forget what it was. But if you go to eBay and you type in Uline, U-L-I-N-E, one word, 4x16 bags, these will come up. They're 4 inches by 16 inches. So I'm going to fill these about halfway with soil as best as I possibly can. Okay, now that these are full, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and compress this down so it's a little more compact. I don't want there to be any air pockets in here. Probably needs a little bit more soil after I went ahead and did that. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And if you're smarter than me, you'll do this work outside. It's just too nasty of a day outside. It's 54 degrees and cold and gray and damp, and I just don't want to be outside in that right now. That may be a nice day for some of you guys that are further up north, but it's too much for me to endure. So if you can do this outside, by all means, please do. Now I'm going to wash my hands because they're filthy and I don't want to contaminate the bottle of Clonex. Alright, now the bags are filled about halfway. The first thing that you'll notice is that these bags are they are full of moisture, and the reason why is because I baked this soil in the oven and they haven't cooled down to room temperature yet. So it's only about 80 degrees, but it's considerably warmer than it is in my house, so it's making condensation. It's nothing to worry about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself a little bit of tie string, and this is just 100 meters of twist tie. One thing that I didn't mention before, on each of these cuttings I soaked them in a solution of hydrogen peroxide to purify them. It was 50%, 3% hydrogen peroxide and 50% tap water, so I let them go ahead and soak for a while to clean them out. Because these cuttings are now so small, I'm going to have to trim some of this bag off. But that's not a problem. It's better to get bags that are too tall than bags that are too short, because bags that are too tall can easily be corrected with a pair of scissors. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to compress this down lightly. I'm going to take my cutting and I'm going to, I have to dip it in Clonex first. You see, I'm not used to using this stuff. So, some disgusting looking purple gel. I'm going to lightly dab this off. I'm going to dip it in the Clonex up to where I want it to be rooted. Wow, that looks absolutely disgusting. But hopefully it works. And I'm going to press this into the soil to where I put the gel. And I sure hope I'm doing this right, because I've never used this stuff before, and it seems like that's what the directions say to do. So I'm going to press this in. I'm going to press the soil down around it. Make sure that the bud is still sticking out. And then I'm going to take this twist tie and I'm going to secure this bag in place firmly around the cutting so it can't go anywhere. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a close-up. I know it's hard to see, but the cutting, the bud is sticking out right here, and the twist tie is underneath the bud. You don't want to strangle off the bud. You want to make sure that it's underneath that bud. There, I pressed it down a little bit more, now it's easier to see. So I'm going to take this and set it over here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the Smith cutting. Dip it down about halfway, let it drip off. Compress the soil down and press the cutting into the center of the soil. Made a little bit of a mess. Press the soil down around it. take the twist tie and wrap it around the cutting, but underneath the bud. Now the added benefit of making sure that this plastic piece is taller than the actual cutting itself will provide it with a little bit of additional humidity, but it has an escape hatch up top, so that should help it from actually rotting. And there's a close-up of this. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a permanent marker and I'm going to label my bags. Okay, and there you have it. Here is both cuttings successfully potted up. You'll see right here I labeled them Col de Dame Blanc and Smith, and they're both dated today, which is 2/23/19. So it may be too late to save these guys, but I'm going to try anyway. We'll see if this fig pop method can come to the rescue. I wasn't quite sure where to place these, so I'm just going to place them on the edge of my heat mat to try to keep the bottom roots warm. Well, what I hope will be bottom roots. I'm trying to keep the soil medium warm and keep the tops cooler by keeping them off the heating mat. If you're wondering what is in this right here, in that plastic bag, they're damp paper towels, and there are a few Bismarckia palm seeds that I found off of a palm. And I just want to see if I can get them to germinate. I've had luck germinating medjool date pits before, and I just want to see if it'll work. There's no way a Bismarckia palm can survive anywhere in North Carolina except indoors, but I just want to see if I can do it. So that's what's going on there. So I'm just going to let these go for a couple of weeks, see if there's any life left in them. It may be too late, but I hope you follow along, because I will post regular updates, and I will let you know the progress and see if this method is successful at rescuing these cuttings from beyond the grave. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope it was interesting. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for future updates. I really appreciate you all watching, and I hope I'll see you again next time.